Let's see here. Hi, folks. Let me see here. Hi,
Hey,
Larry.
Anime.
Hi, Gina.
You're becoming an expert at
Hi.
that now.
Do you guys? I don't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me?
Oh, hey, I can hear you now. Hi, Larry.
Good
You
morning.
hear me,
How are you?
Anime?
I can't. Yes, thank you, Gina. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay, okay.
Morning, Gina.
Morning, Larry.
Thank you, Margaret. All righty. Oh, Lynn, there's Lynn.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi,
Lynn, how are you?
Good.
Great. Super. Hey, Bob. We're just waiting for Jason. I did send him the link. Hey, Tracy. Hi, Tina. So we'll just wait.
Good morning.
Morning.
While we're waiting,
Yeah.
Anime and Tim, on doing that email push, do you
Yeah.
want to do it maybe Friday of this week, get it going? I thought there was a few things going on with the Wheelock survey that it didn't make sense to get
Yes.
it started. So,
Yes. Let's.
I mean, we can talk about it Thursday, but I just didn't, it was just on my list of things that I said I'd follow
Okay.
up on that I had it.
Useful. Oh, sorry, Margaret. Okay, Margaret is moving over. Margaret, I didn't realize, is it Margaret or Jason?
This is Jason.
Oh, hey, Jason. Okay, so sorry. I saw Margaret. Thank you for typing in the Q&A. So sorry. I am going to make you, there you are. Hello. A co-host so you can share your screen.
Very good. It was doing some weird stuff. I've been on since about a couple minutes before 10, but it looked very different from the usual Zoom, but now it looks normal to me. So whatever
Well,
happened,
Jason,
that's great.
my personal philosophy, there's no reward for being early. Except that you have to wait. So hence that is how I roll. But anyway.
Hilarious. Actually, you know what, Jason? I will actually make you the host and then you get sharing rights.
Great.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, no problem.
And then you were coming in as the chat as Margaret. And so I was, anyways, you're here, we're here, and we're very grateful that you are gonna run this training for us.
Very good. Is there, did you want to start off with any questions or anything, or do you just want me to jump into it? I did hear someone say something about working on the email. And as an OCPF campaign finance professional, my alarm started going off right away. So let me just, first of all, thank you for having me. Also, when we do these ballot question seminars like this, there are a couple of us at OCPF who can do them. No one ever wants to do them. They make me do them all. The reason for that is because it's not cut and dry like a candidate's campaign. Are there any elected officials on this call, like school committee members or?
I'm a school committee member,
Yep.
yes.
Yeah, very. So you have your campaign finance law where it's just, you can take $1,000, you disclose it, it's, you know, and it's all black and white and easy.
Yeah.
In these ballot question elections, there are a lot of gray areas. And I understand that there are groups in town who they need a new school. This is what this is about, right? A new school. Okay.
Yes.
Or else they're going to lose accreditation or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's very important to them. They're excited. They want it to pass. And on the other side, you have a group of people who, you know, they do pay a lot in property taxes, and they're just like, I just can't pay anymore, and they're against it. So there's, you know, that conflict. And in addition to that, there are kind of a lot of rules, and some of the rules aren't always very straightforward. I just did one of these seminars last week, and I could just see the frustration on people's faces as I went along. It was almost like I was like tightening screws as we went along, and it was like torture for them. I'm just going to come out right at the beginning, just so you know, so it's not like a slow torture. There's not a lot that a town can do to publicize a ballot question. There's not a lot. It's going to be up to the ballot question committees to do that publicizing. Just to let you know up front, we'll go through it, and there are some things that towns can do.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's going to be me telling you, don't do this, don't do that. It's going to be frustrating for some of you.
But that's okay, because we really want to have clear sight. I know there's a lot of gray, but we're really hoping this training will keep us in our lanes. You know, this is the communications subcommittee. So our job is to engage the community and educate them on the topics relating to the new school. And we know not to try not to veer into the advocacy lane. So.
Okay. Advocacy will be okay, actually. It's how you spend the money and the resources you use. Okay. So we'll get into that.
Good.
I'm going to share my screen now.
Thank you.
All right. Let me just expand that. Do you see the full slide there where it says ground rules?
Yes.
All right, very good, thank you. And I'm just gonna get my Q&A up just in case a question pops in. As I go along, feel free to interrupt me, please.
Oh, okay.
But if you feel, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Jason. No, so actually, one of the subcommittee members, he just asked, you know, should he hold his questions or should he ask the questions now?
You can ask the question now, or since we're just starting, maybe hold off a little bit.
Okay, no.
But if you have a question, feel free to type it in the Q&A, because we have like 4 sections that we're going to go through over the next 35, 40 minutes. And at the end of each section, I'll take a look at the Q&A and ask if people have questions, and we'll answer them as we go along.
Beautiful.
So we're going to talk about public employees. We're going to talk about public buildings and public resources. But first, we're going to start off just by doing a quick overview of OCPF. Obviously, Anna, you know about us because you have to fill out our forms and whatnot. But we are a state agency. I think we might be the smallest state agency, or at least one of the smallest. Our budget's only 1.8 million, which in the scope of a $40 billion state budget, that's pretty small. We have 14 people on Beacon Hill, usually when there's not a pandemic. We're not in the State House there. That building to the right, if any of you have been to the state building, that's called One Ashburton Place. It's 21 stories of state workers like myself in cubicles, pushing paper. Mostly we push electronic paper, but taking care of the state's business. We're on the 4th floor, and we're basically an audit agency. And that, auditor has sort of negative connotations, but so we like to kind of think of ourselves as audit helping agency. In other words, there are thousands of people out there running for office and running committees and running ballot question committees. And we don't see ourselves as a law enforcement agency out there to bust people. We see ourselves as, these are people trying to run campaigns. We're here to help. So the first thing I should tell you right away is, if anything comes up, feel free to send us an email, call us, and we'll help you through the situation, whatever it is that you're in. We're all about disclosure at OCPF. Money raised and money spent. That's what we're about. Money raised, money spent, it's disclosed to the public. I'm going to show you real quickly what that looks like. Our director is appointed in a unique way: the head of the state Republican Party, the head of the state Democratic Party, the Secretary of State, and a law school dean appointed by the governor. Those 4 people get together every 6 years and they select a director. Back in '94, a guy named Mike Sullivan was hired, and he was there until December of 2019 when he retired after a long tenure. Then COVID hit before they had a chance to hire a new director. So he came back in a part-time position, and he's still here until they can figure out what to do as far as hiring a new director. Our audit department handles the filing of reports at our office. There are about 2,700 different committees filing about 35,000 reports with us. And you've probably seen those reports in some fashion in the news reports that you might read. People don't always write stories about OCPF, but almost every political story, if you go into it, maybe paragraph 5 or 6, they'll say, and candidate X has $50,000 and gets most of her money from this group. They're going to our website to get that information, and I'll show you that in just a second. Our legal department opens and closes cases, and they also answer your legal questions. So if there's ever a time when, as a subcommittee, you go, hey, let's do this, I would suggest you send an email to our legal department. They'll look at it, review it, and they'll send you an email back with a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That way you at least have it in black and white. So if anyone questions you, you can say, we did contact OCPF's legal department. And then our IT department has created our database. I'm the education director, so I do our YouTube videos and newsletters and basically anything the public sees, I have my hands in. I'm also the media spokesman. I don't know what your newspaper is there. Is it the Metro West Daily News maybe, or?
We have the Hometown Weekly and the Medfield Press.
In the Medfield, okay. If they reach out to me, they might, concerning this ballot question and ask questions. I'll never speak directly about your ballot question or your group or you as individuals. My job, because of the way our statute is set up, is I can't really talk about people, individuals, groups. I can just provide guidance of the law to these reporters and say, good luck writing your story. So I kind of have it easy when it comes to that stuff. So someone, Tim just asked a question, what's the typical turnaround time when you ask a question for the legal department? And he gave an example, can we write an article outlining pros and cons surrounding site selection? It's pretty quick usually. If you send it, you'll probably get it that day, maybe within a few hours, depending on the complexity of it. Write an article. Are you talking about a news article maybe, Tim?
Yeah.
Yeah. An individual can write a news article surrounding site selection, like a letter to the editor, maybe post it to Facebook, whatever, as long as public resources aren't being used. By public resources, I mean, maybe the school department has a communications director and they say, hey, communications director, can you write this article for us? In that case, that's one of those gray areas we probably say, don't do it until you get an answer from OCPF. But if Tim just wants to do it on his own time, write it up and then submit it to the local media, there would not be an issue with that. Those kind of things. I'm going to show you real quick a little bit about OCPF. This doesn't really have much to do with ballot questions, but I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes just to let you know kind of where we come from. It might be a little bit helpful to know our background. So like I said, we're all about disclosure. This is the front page of our website, ocpf.us. Our primary mission is to provide disclosure on campaign finance. And so we use this website to do that and accomplish that. The most popular link on our website is right here where it says search campaign finance data. So let's say I'm a state rep candidate from your town, Medfield. And I'm just getting started. I just kind of want to find out who donates in our community because I'm going to have my fundraiser coming up. So I want to maybe invite people. So they'll go to something like this and they'll search up Medfield. Oh boy, went a little too quick right there. And they'll choose Medfield and maybe they'll say, you know what, I only want to know people from Medfield who gave the maximum amount. And the maximum an individual can give to a candidate is $1,000. So I'm just going to type that in and we have a few there. So, you know, maybe my politics align with Marty Walsh and someone from Medfield named Matthew is donating. Maybe I'll invite Matthew to my fundraiser. And so people use this as a database. Or if you're running a ballot question committee, maybe it'd be helpful to invite some of these people. Or perhaps I just want to know people from Medfield who give, maybe their occupation would be teacher. And, you know, you'll see stuff like that pop up. So there are lots of different ways. Our goal is to take whatever data is filed with us and present it in a database that people can search. That's what we're all about, is the disclosure. Tim, I'll get to your question in a bit. So the that's the most popular feature. A lot of times you can also go up here to reports and you can look up such things as like legislative races. You know, all the races are laid out. You can also look at like super PAC reports. There's a lot of stuff on our website that I wanted to point out. If there's ever a time when you need information, but maybe it's off hours, you can always go to help videos. And if you just type in ballot question, some stuff will pop up. So municipal ballot question committee tutorial, that would be helpful. You could share that with people asking questions or get reviews. Or public resources is a big one for people running municipal ballot questions. The use of public resources, when we have cases involving ballot questions on a municipal level, it almost always has to do with the use of public resources, the prohibited use of that. And we're going to get into those in more detail, but we have a lot of information on our website. That's what I'm getting at. So feel free to go to the website and email us. Tim asked, could you differentiate what volunteer committee members can do versus what paid town employees or consultants can do? Yes, we're getting to that in a couple of segments. Let's start first with fundraising. So Anna, is there a vote yes ballot question committee already formed in town?
I believe there is, yes.
Okay. So that vote yes ballot question committee, they're going to need to raise money so they can buy lawn signs and boost Facebook posts and do things like that. Who can raise money for that ballot question committee? That's what we're going to talk about next. Basically anyone, but public employees may not. Who's a public employee? It's anyone who's appointed, first of all, and compensated. So these are your school teachers like this guy, police officers, firefighters, people who work at UMass, people who work for the state like myself, the libraries, the senior centers. These are all public employees and they're prohibited from soliciting or receiving campaign contributions directly or indirectly for any political purpose, 24/7 nationwide. So when it comes time to raise money, whether it's for your ballot question or whether it's for a school committee campaign or a selectman's campaign, public employees cannot ask for the money or receive the money. I'm just going to quickly kind of go through this. I don't know if any of you are public employees, but when you're dealing with a ballot question on the local level that has to do with a school, you're going to have school teachers and firefighters and police officers and DPW workers involved. So just so you can kind of get a feel, the receipt of campaign contributions is prohibited. So if at any time the vote yes ballot question committee is like, we need to sell tickets to our pancake fundraiser to raise some money to buy some signs, teachers and school administrators shouldn't be involved in selling those tickets and receiving those funds. If there's an event at a function hall, public employees shouldn't be at the front door collecting the money. We don't see a lot of receipt cases. What we see mostly are soliciting cases. Now, a solicitation for a political purpose can be verbal or written. I mean, this guy's on the phone right now. He's making phone calls, inviting people to his friend's fundraiser. He's a school principal. That would be prohibited. Verbal solicitations are prohibited. Written solicitations are also prohibited, and that's where we see most of our cases. And where do we see most of those cases? Social media. Obviously this is only in the last 15, 20 years. Before that, it was, maybe postcards and things like that. But public employees, they all have their private Twitters and Instagrams and Facebooks and whatnot. And they're politically active on there, and that's okay. However, they're still prohibited from soliciting or receiving campaign contributions. If I'm a school teacher in town and I see that the Vote Yes ballot question committee is having its fundraiser on Friday, I don't want to go on Facebook and say, we need a new school, our pipes are leaking, we're going to lose accreditation. Please go to the fundraiser Friday night. That would be prohibited. Some of these examples I give involve, like candidates and things like that, which it's all the same rules. You can imagine that being a ballot question. But for example, guy on the right is a school teacher. The candidate is Rachel on the left, and she had an event, a fundraising event. The employees showed up, which is fine. Public employees can attend fundraisers. I just answered your question, Megan. Public employees can attend fundraisers and get photographs, and they can post that to Instagram saying, Rachel's the greatest person ever. Please, vote for her. But when he typed in donate money to her, please, that's where OCPF would step in and say, you took it too far. You asked for money. That's prohibited by law. So it's really the ask for money where a public employee could trip up on this. Just a little side note, no one's going to jail for this stuff, but it could end up in, a Facebook war online where you don't really want more contention than you already might have. The guy in the Lions hat there is a public employee. He writes, Howard Hamlin would be a great city councilor. Great, they can support candidates. Please vote for him. Sure, no problem. And donate here. That's where we'd have the problem. It's where he talks about donating. Nick Herman's not a public employee or anything. He's running for Senate. And he talks about voting for me. And if you want to donate to my campaign, go here. The icon with yellow hair there, she's a public employee. And she tags two of her friends with the eyeballs there. That would be prohibited. Our legal department has said that even just tagging friends is inconsistent with the campaign finance law. So your public employees out there, they just want to be careful with sharing posts that have to do with fundraising when it comes to the ballot question, or even school committee members or selectmen, that sort of thing. There's an invitation to vote yes on the new high school ballot question committee. They come across our desk from time to time. And if this one came across our desk, I can tell you our alarms would be going off. The speakers are Superintendent Lisa Nathan, Attorney John O'Malley, and State Rep Nick Squires, 7 p.m., $25 a person. This is a fundraising invitation. If we saw this, we'd say cancel the event because the superintendent is an appointed public employee and she can't be involved directly or indirectly in fundraising. She's a draw to this event. We'd say that's prohibited. We don't care about the state rep. Elected officials, they can solicit and receive all they want. Even though they're public employees, they're exempt from this rule. But the superintendent, she would not be able to solicit or receive or be draws to an event. Public employees can get involved with campaigns. I mean, if you're familiar with Massachusetts government, school teachers, police officers, firefighters, people who work at colleges and community colleges, public colleges, they're highly involved with campaigns, and they can be as long as they stay away from the money. Public employees can be involved with the Vote Yes ballot question committee, just in a non-fundraising capacity. They can hold signs. They can go on social media and say, please vote yes on the upcoming ballot question, or vote no, whatever way they're going. And that's fine as long as they do it on their own time, their private social media, and there's no fundraising. They can hold signs on their own time. They can also donate to the ballot question committee or a candidates committee or whatever. They can contribute to candidates and committees just like anyone else. That's the end of public employees. Does anyone have any questions on that? All right. I'll talk a little bit about public buildings and fundraising very quickly. When your ballot question does have a, when the ballot question does have a fundraiser, can't have it in a public building like a community college or a library or a town hall. It has to be in a private venue or someone's home, backyard, that sort of thing. Before we go off from public employees, Tim had a question. Superintendent can attend an event, however, cannot formally speak or be advertised as a reason for attending the event. That's generally correct. Yes, they can't be a draw to the event. But at the ballot question, vote yes ballot question event, the superintendent can show up. Is your superintendent Jeff Marsden? I think I saw that online. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Jeff can show up at an event and be asked to go up on stage and talk a little bit about the need. That'd be fine. He just can't be a draw to the event. So yeah, just no fundraising in government buildings. If any of you get involved in the vote yes ballot question committee, please let them know not to send emails or invitations to the fundraiser to government buildings or government email addresses. That would be prohibited. The Supreme Court actually in the 1920s, 100 years ago, determined that sending invitations into government buildings is a violation, would be a solicitation in a government building. So you just want to look out for that, please. And any questions on government buildings and fundraising? We're going to get into government buildings in a different capacity soon, but okay. So back in '78, the Supreme Judicial Court in Massachusetts was presented with a case. The city of Boston decided to spend $1 million to support a ballot question. There were some taxpayers in town and they sued the city saying, you can't use public money to advocate for a question that some of us are against. The Supreme Judicial Court said the taxpayers are right. Public resources may not be used for political campaign purposes. A public resource is anything paid for by the taxpayers. Buildings, property, copiers, employee time, they cannot be used for campaign purposes. Computers, the emails that might be sent out from a government email address, those cannot be used for political campaign purposes. Most public resources involve, your ballot question elections, like I said. Just an example of something that, some things we used to deal with. We don't see them a lot anymore, but, back in, even 10 years ago, school administrators might be like nervous, the election's coming up, and they're like, my goodness, we need everybody to vote yes on this thing. And so they asked someone in the office, hey, can you make 1,000 copies that say vote yes on the upcoming high school for these reasons? If it fails, this will happen. We'll make 1,000 copies, give it to the teachers. The teachers will put it in the backpacks, and then the kids will take it home to the parents for informational purposes. That would be prohibited. That's the use of copiers and papers and employee time for a political purpose, because that question is going to appear on a ballot at an election. During the workday, employees should not advocate for or against a ballot question. We don't see this a lot, but just so you know, a school principal shouldn't say, you know what, we should, during the day, during your break period today, if you're a teacher, do you mind, spending your time calling this list and asking people to vote yes? The more votes we can get, the better, that kind of thing. It doesn't happen very much, but just so an FYI, employees shouldn't use their time during the day to advocate for or against a ballot question. There will be an exception to this, and you'll see in a bit. Please, the postage machines at school, we do see this still, where someone says, hey, we want to send out just an objective informational mailing to the public. We're going to use our postage and our printers to do all this. We're not going to say vote yes or vote no. We're just going to say the election's coming up. If it passes, this will happen. If it doesn't pass, this will happen. That would be prohibited. I do have a little bit of good news here. I've been saying, don't do this, don't do that. The state, not too long ago, maybe 10 years ago, passed a law, Mass General Law, Chapter 53, Section 18B, that says one time, if the legislative body of your town, like I think you guys have selectmen maybe, if they decide to spend the money to do it, they can send one informational mailing. And that is right here. Mass General Law, Chapter 53, Section 18B. My office does not regulate this law. So if you have any questions about this law, if you want to present this to your selectmen in town and say, hey, can we do this, please? You would want to call the state's elections division. That's the Secretary of State's office, Bill Galvin's office, and ask, about the details of this. But I do want to point out Section 18B does allow, if approved by the governing body, does allow you to send something that has the full text of each question and so on and so forth. And all the rules are right there. So I'd probably take that down as a note, Chapter 53, Section 18B. All right, back to the bad news. Just joking. All right, what do we have now? Emails. This is what we see a lot of lately. A superintendent maybe sitting down and saying, you know what, the vote's about to happen. I'm getting a little bit nervous. I'm going to blast out a bunch of emails to the entire parent list that we have saying it's important that they vote yes, that you vote yes on the upcoming construction of the school. That would be prohibited. That's the use of public resources, government email for a political purpose. So just something to be aware of. We see this a lot, the robocall system where they cancel school because of snow, or lately, I live in Brockton, so we get a lot of robocalls about COVID announcements and things like that. But if your school department ever gets the idea, hey, maybe we should send out a robocall asking people to vote yes, you have to say, oh, put on the brakes. We can't do that. That's a public resource. We can't use that public resource for a political purpose. A bunch of questions are coming in. I'm going to answer them in a bit. So I just did a bunch of prohibitions. So I'm going to look at the questions now and see what we have. Can we use public property to advertise a ballot question, even if we don't advocate for a position, like putting sandwich boards at the schools that say vote February 28th, new elementary school? We are going to get into that. The bottom line is you probably will be able to do that if equal access is granted. And I'm going to talk about equal access more in a bit. Chris asked, the primary person who publishes local information on the Medfield patch is employed by the town, but is a patch volunteer. Is that person allowed to publish articles related to the school building project? If so, what types of articles? That person, while they're in their capacity as a volunteer for the patch, can publish articles that way. What about fundraising articles? That would be a good question. A public employee who works for a newspaper, looks like it's probably online, an online newspaper, when it comes to discussing fundraising, I would say before they would do anything with fundraising, that they'd contact OCPF. That would be a tough one. Never seen that question before, but generally, if they're doing it on their own time, they can do whatever they want. When it comes to fundraising, that's where I'd say, why don't we ask an OCPF attorney to analyze this and see what the answer would be. By the way, I'm a former reporter, newspaper reporter, and kind of feels weird to have any kind of government agency regulate what a newspaper can do. But I would definitely send an email to OCPF before a public employee who also volunteers for the patch does anything with fundraising in that patch newspaper. Anonymous attendee says, could you please repeat who to get in touch with for Section 18B? Bill Galvin's office. There's an elections division for the state that's run by Bill Galvin's office, the Secretary of State. So if you went to Google and typed in Massachusetts Elections Division, that'll get you to where you need to go. Can schools send emails or weekly updates suggesting people go to site X or attend public forum to learn more about the new school? Generally, no. That's why there's that sort of law in place where one time the governing body of the town can allow that sort of information to be sent out once. Weekly updates, that wouldn't work. No. A public forum, this is one of those exceptions. There are always gray areas. We have said that a school department can advertise the time, date, and place of a public forum in some cases, but you would never want to do that without first sending an email to our office to get with the information that you're going to provide in that advertisement for their thumbs up or thumbs down or suggestions. And to really frustrate you, we would also recommend that you call the state's ethics commission. That's a completely different agency. It's on the 6th floor, we're on the 4th floor, but they also have advice on public forums. So generally advertising for public forums, you can definitely have a public forum, but when it comes to advertising the public forum, that's where you want to get guidance from OCPF and ethics. So you can do it, but prior to doing it, make sure you get the thumbs up from both agencies on your script or whatever it is you're distributing. All right, now we're on to permitted activities. So the woman you're looking at there, I imagine she's a principal or a school superintendent. Part of their job, their scope of responsibility, it's not just educating kids, that's the primary scope, but they're also responsible for budgets and they're responsible for, well, building new schools when accreditation is on the line, that sort of thing. And so, you know, they have a different scope of responsibility than a school teacher. A school teacher, he or she, they're teaching kids directly. So a superintendent and a school principal, they might have a little more leeway, or the budget director for your department, school department. They might have a little more leeway on what they can do during the workday. For example, they can speak to the media during the workday, no problem. Newspaper reporter calls, hey, you know, we heard this about the new school. They can talk to them. They can attend meetings even during the workday to discuss the issue. Let's say the Lions Club in town, they meet every Wednesday. They meet on Wednesdays to have breakfast at the Lions Club. And one Wednesday they say, you know what, let's see if the superintendent can come down and talk to us about this school. You know, man, my property taxes are high. I don't really know if I want to vote yes, but the kids are important. Maybe the superintendent can come down and chat with us about it. That would be fine because it's within the scope of responsibility for the superintendent to discuss those sorts of issues with the public. Analyze a question, you have to do that. I mean, you have to analyze what happens if it passes, what happens if it fails, what happens to property taxes, you know, that sort of thing. So obviously money can be spent to analyze a question and the analysis can be put together in a report. You know, the report can't be distributed unsolicited, but the report can be provided where needed, you know, by someone who asks. What's it say? Provide an analysis to someone who asks for it. That's what I just said. And post information to the department website. This is important. If I live in Medfield and I know the election's coming up, I think it's in March, is it? Or is it February 28th? Is it in March?
Sorry, the vote?
Yeah, the vote, the election.
It's next fall.
Oh, next fall. Okay. Long time. You know, if I'm a voter in town and I want to know more about the school building project, I'm probably going to get online and go to the school department and look for it. I'm sorry, do you hear a lot of banging right now?
No.
Okay. I have 3 kids in the house because Brockton is remote and I just hear, it sounds like thunder up there. So I'm just glad you don't hear it. So post information to the department website. If I'm a voter in town, I probably want to, if I want to go to for information, I'm going to go to the website. And we have said it's okay to post information to the website as long as it doesn't look like advocacy. So if I have an analysis and I have maybe recommendations from the school committee or whatever, I can post that online. It just can't like have a banner that says, you know, vote yes on the school department project. Click here for more information. It can just say, for more information about the school department project, please click here. I click there and then it has the analysis. What happens if it passes? What happens if it doesn't? Maybe a recommendation from the school committee, other information. As long as it doesn't look like advocacy or a campaign, then the law would not prohibit that type of display. The good news is if you ever want to display that, and you do, you can always ask our office to review it. Say, here's a link to our page. How does it look? Do you have any recommendations, any suggestions? And we'll get back to you promptly. All right, what's next? Before I move on to equal access, any questions about what we just discussed about permitted activities? As I said that out loud, I realized that, from your perspective, you're part of the communications group. And I just want to throw in real quick that as the communications group, you're going to communicate. And so as individuals, you can go on your Facebook, your Instagram, your YouTube channels or whatever, and you can make content, but just remember that you can't use public resources to make that content. You do it privately, or you work through or with the ballot question committee if anything needs to be paid for. So maybe you have a volunteer who's real good at making 30-second videos for Instagram, and someone makes one on their own time and they provide it to your group. And your group's like, we love this thing. Let's post it to Instagram everywhere, wherever we can, or even on the Vote Yes page. And then we want to boost it. Let's spend, $500 boosting it to our little area here on Instagram. That can be done, but the ballot question committee needs to pay for it. It can't come from any kind of public resources, even filtered through any third parties or anything like that. It has to be done by the ballot question committee. So equal access. So someone earlier, I think it was Tim, asked, what about public property? What can we do there? Yeah, there is that exemption. And the Supreme Judicial Court said public resources may not be used for campaign purposes unless equal access is granted. Equal access is never available really through distribution. So if you want to send out newsletters or mailings or robocalls, equal access doesn't apply there because it would never be granted. But what about public buildings and public property? There are equal access arguments that can be made there. For example, I took this call. I know it says candidate. I'm just going to switch it up and say ballot question. So I took a call from a ballot question committee that said, hey, Jason, the boys football team is playing on Friday night. We want to show up with our literature and stand by the concession stand so that when people come up to buy their hot dogs, we can hand them the literature. It was for a candidate, but for ballot question, vote yes on the ballot question, vote yes on the ballot question. Is that okay? Our answer would be, we don't care, so long as equal access is granted. So before you do something like that, I'd probably call the athletic director and say, what are the rules as far as politics on public property, and find out what the rules are. As long as equal access is granted, we're fine. Your group, the Vote Yes group, does not need to reach out, or the AD does not need to reach out to the Vote No group and say, the Vote Yes group is passing out literature. You can do the same. But at some point in the future, if a Vote No person sees you passing it out, they might say, I want to pass out literature at a game. They can do so as well under the same terms and conditions. This happens all the time. The use of public property for campaign purposes, whether it's a candidate for school committee, going to the senior center with coffee and donuts to talk to seniors and ask for votes, or whether it's a presidential candidate going to a UMass gymnasium to give a campaign speech during the primaries. It happens all the time, and we're okay with it so long as equal access is granted. Now, when it comes to signs, I think someone said something about signs. So, I've taken this call before. The Vote Yes group put Vote Yes signs on the public library lawn. That's illegal, right? No, not really. But if the Vote No group wants to do it, they can do it. Most libraries, though, would say, you know what, we don't want any kind of politicking happening. Our lawn's going to look like, a field of lawn signs if we allow one person to do it. So our rule is no political signs on our lawn. And we're cool with that too, as long as everyone's treated the same. That is equal access. And it looks like a question came in. I get confused about communications on this project, Megan said. There's a whole time now when the building is being designed and input is wanted. It seems like a legit expense for the school to give people updates. And if we didn't, people would say we're not communicating. But when does it move into the ballot question arena? Yeah, the school department, like I said, they can provide analysis, can provide that to the, and post that to the website. That would all be, fine, but the distribution unsolicited of information to the community is prohibited. And that is if you feel like your hands are tied and you can't do much, and that is correct. But the law does not permit even objective material to be distributed to the community. Now, if the superintendent decides to have a public forum to do that, he can do so. And when he's there, he can have that analysis, or he can have information, and he can provide it to the people who are at the meeting. But there's no unsolicited distribution outside of public distribution using public resources. Unfortunately, I mean, that even includes like school newsletters. You know, if a school newsletter goes out every month to the parents, you know, the subject of a ballot question should not appear in that newsletter. If the subject of a ballot question does appear in the newsletter, don't put it in there until you review it with an OCPF attorney. He or she will probably say you can't do it. But there may be special circumstances where they say, you know what, in this case, it's okay, but I would doubt that. The bottom line is don't do it. If for some reason you think there's a special circumstance where you can do it, and by you, I'm talking about the school department, then make sure you get some special permission from OCPF. I'm going to see what the next slide says. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, I'm going to talk about ballot questions next, but in the world of public resources and public employees, I'd like to answer your questions now if you still have any. Oh, there are some. I'm sorry. It didn't scroll down. So the last question was from Megan. Hilly, if a volunteer town committee analyzes a question and as a result makes a recommendation to support a ballot to the selectmen or to the public, can they post that recommendation to the committee's town website? So the committee, I guess the building committee might have a page on the town website. If there's a building committee page on the town website, yes, that analysis can be posted there. Even the recommendation can be posted there, as long as it doesn't look like a campaign recommendation. I mean, like a campaign type of feel to it, where it's like our committee has analyzed the need for a school, and we feel that it's in the best interest that it pass, and these are the reasons why. That sort of thing is okay. Yes. Is it also okay, Tim asked, for a committee members to distribute material that either building committee or the communication subcommittee via social media? Yeah, if you get a hold of that analysis or anything, a committee member, and I think you're talking about yourselves here, right? A committee member, yeah, they can plaster their social media pages with whatever they want, really, as long as they're not a public employee asking for money. Yeah, they can go on Facebook, they can go on Twitter, Instagram, all those. YouTube, you can do YouTube videos, and you can pass this material out as much as you'd like. What are some of the acceptable ways, Tim asked, to promote attending a public forum? You can do it on social media through private accounts and that sort of thing. But if a city ever wants to promote it and use public resources, that's the time, date, place situation I was talking about, where before doing so, get permission, get guidance and approval from an OCPF attorney. So for the ballot question committee, I think Anna said that there was a committee already formed. To form, it's really not that difficult. They filed this form, the 101BQ form, with the town clerk that said, we are starting a ballot question committee. This is the treasurer and this is the chair. And once they filed that form, they were in business. They did have to form a bank. They did have to create a separate bank account to accept contributions. But once they set up that bank account, they could start raising money, this ballot question committee, and taking those funds and putting them into the bank account. They always need to get the name and address of every donor, residential address. And then if the contribution is 200 or more, occupation and employer. So name and address from every donor, occupation and employer. Cash is okay up to $50. After that, it has to be in the form of a check or credit card, debit card, that sort of thing. But money can come in, and there are almost no restrictions on who can give. Even businesses can give. For those of you who are elected officials on this call, you know that businesses cannot give to you, but they can give to ballot question committees. Maybe you want to have your fundraiser coming up, and you're at someone who's really for the Vote Yes committee. They own a business, a restaurant, and they say, you know what? On Sunday afternoon, you can use my whole restaurant for your fundraiser. Normally, I would charge, a wedding party a certain amount of money, but for you, it's free. That would be an in-kind contribution. A business can do that. They can't do it for candidates, but they can do it for your ballot question committees. So 8 days before the election next fall, the ballot question committee would file a report showing the money raised and the money spent. And then they'd also file a report 30 days afterward. The report's called the M102. I'll just show it to you real quick. This is the front page of our website. I'm going to go to, there are lots of ways to find the M102. And it's also the same form used by candidates, but I would go to forms and education. You can go to forms and guides. You can go to municipal forms, and here it is, the M102. This would show the money raised, the money spent, and then the ending balance. All the receipts are listed right here. The date that the money was received, name and address, the amount, and then occupation and employer if it's 200 or more. All the expenditures are here. So if the Vote Yes ballot question committee spends money to boost Instagram posts, they to whom paid, Instagram, address, purpose, boosting posts to promote the Vote Yes on the new high school question and the amount, it's all listed there. If that restaurant did give you free food for your event, you put that here in the in-kind contribution schedule, and so on and so forth.
Sorry, Jason, excuse
Yes.
me. Yeah, I think some people who are listed as panelists can't type into the Q&A. So I just wanted to maybe ask right now if some of the panelists here have any questions to ask
Sure.
Jason. Thank you. Anyone? No? Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So that took 50 minutes. It was a little longer than I thought it would be. I guess I was long-winded, but let me just ask the final questions here that were in the chat. So Hilly asked, how about an outside volunteer group? Can they distribute information on the school town's website for their campaign purposes? Hilly, can you speak? Can you come and talk? If maybe you can clarify that for me a little bit.
I think you'll need to allow her to speak, right? Or do you want to?
Oh, do I?
Do you
Well,
want
I'll
to make?
try and answer this thing. A volunteer group distribute information on a website. Yeah, a school website is run by the school. It's not really, I don't think a school is just going to allow volunteers really to put information on their website, right? They probably ask the school for permission and the school would put it on there. But if the school department puts up information from a volunteer group, that probably opens them up to putting information on the website to the Vote No group. The Vote No group might see that and say, oh yeah, you want to do that? Well, I want equal access to the website too, and I want you to post my Vote No stuff. So I wouldn't suggest that. Chris asked, could open meeting law come into play with regard to members of public bodies posting on social media? Fortunately for me, I don't have to answer public open meeting law questions because I don't know them. Open meeting law is administered by either the AG's office or the Secretary of State's office. So you'd want to get a hold of them for that. And they even said, even though OCPF doesn't govern these actions, is it true that OML might restrict these actions? Yeah, please contact them on that. I wouldn't be able to know that. I did say, you probably saw a slide that says, how does OCPF resolve these cases? We do have to resolve these cases. We have a legal department, but I just want to let you know, we're not out to hammer anybody. If you make a mistake, we will resolve it in some reasonable fashion. I can almost guarantee we're not going to court with you over these things. Our lawyers will probably contact you and they'll say, okay, this happened. Yep, that's prohibited. Let's try and resolve this in some way. It's probably through an educational letter, but it could be something where who knows what they would come up with, but they're very reasonable people and they would try and resolve this in a way where everyone's treated fairly. Tim, your hand's up. You can ask your question?
Jason, you might have to click next to his name and allow him to speak. He's actually on the communications subcommittee. Or unless you want to make me host again or something or other.
Okay. It's, I wonder why I'm sorry for the delay, just a minute. So Tim asked to unmute more. I don't see it. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. If you go to the participant list and maybe next to my name, make me the host again or something or other. And then I can.
I just made you the host.
Okay, cool.
Host.
Okay, lovely. All right, so I will bring Tim over, and then Tim Bonfatti and Tim Knight are actually on the communication subcommittee, so I'll let them. There they
Hi.
are.
Hi. So I had asked the question about the sandwich board on the school property. And I was wondering, just to be clear, because you'd mentioned it would be an equal access issue. So what I was referencing was if the building committee decided or wanted to put, say, 4 or 5 sandwich boards at all the schools in Medfield, that simply didn't take a position and simply said, new elementary school, or the whatever we name this one, February 28th, vote, and it doesn't have a position. So obviously it's not sort of saying vote yes. So there isn't an equal opportunity thing where somebody would come in and say, don't vote. Or, in other words, I'm saying, can the building committee just sort of apolitically advertise a vote to remind people that the school is on the ballot?
From what you told me, that sounds like it would be permitted. But whenever it comes to things like that, where you're posting something in public, I would get an email from OCPF.
Okay, so we should, if we want to do that, we should send an email. We should get that. Yeah, we should lay it all out to OCPF and let them respond.
Yep, and they'll probably give you a thumbs up on that, but then you have it in writing. So when people start to complain, you'll say OCPF contact or approve this sandwich board. If you go to the front page of our website, ocpf.us, the first news item will always have our email address there. And you can send it to that general email address, which is monitored constantly through the day. And either Greg, Maura, or Sarah will get back to you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess I had one other quick question. So FAQs, those can either be frequently asked questions. Those can either be actual questions that people have asked, or they can be sort of hypothetical questions that are commonly asked on projects, but not necessarily specifically. Are those allowable to be publicized on the school, if the building committee answers them and then puts them on the, the building project website?
Yes, that would be fine.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
And then that page, the superintendent then would not be able to take that page and blast it out to all the parents saying, look at this.
Right.
But
yeah,
on your private Facebook pages and your Instagrams, you guys can say, hey, look at this, and post it on your private pages, which, Medfield, it's a town. So, you probably have a big outreach, just the people on this call right here.
Right. Thank you.
Looks like Tim is trying to ask a question, but I don't hear you, Tim.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know how to work the mute button. Thanks so much. The information is great. A follow-up that something we're trying to get a little more organized, and I want a little more clarity. Email lists. So like there's a neighborhood group where the school may be going. Sometimes there's a broader group, like it might be monthly or weekly news updates, things like that. What are the rules around that? Because I thought I heard you say, I understand we can't use town resources and whatnot, but can you speak to that for a couple minutes?
Yes. our office has determined that email lists are things of value. Email list that's owned by the school is a public resource that was collected by public employees and that sort of thing. So if the Vote Yes ballot question committee or government entity has that list and they want to use it for political purposes, they will want to run that situation past our office. You know,
I think I'm making the assumption of that's the case, like, because I think we've gradually said, you know, there's different areas in town. Like it is damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? We have to make sure the town is informed about what we're doing. But we start to gradually build up our email list. And that's where I was going. So it may or may not be, you know, I don't think of it as an individual posting something on, you know, Facebook or social, because there is some organization that says, hey, we want to create and expand this list.
Yeah, the best thing to do would be for your group to create its own separate list.
Okay.
So, you know, you could say, hey, anyone who wants to give us your email address, we're going to create our own separate list. And by your group, I'm talking about the Vote Yes group.
No, I'm talking in this case, the communications subcommittee.
The communications committee creating their own. I can't answer that right now.
It's all right.
I think that you're going to have to, you know, I'm going to ask our legal department. You know, we always say, you know, you can't use the school departments, but can you create your own list? Yeah, but in some way, you are town officials, correct? You're part of the school building committee that was formed by the town. So there is a gray area there. And so, you know, I'll get back to you, Anna. I'm going to chat with the legal department.
Because you know what, Jason? So on the Dale Street School Project website, which is on the district website, we do, you know, we have, you know, sign up here to receive our emails, which is for the communications subcommittee. So it's hosted on the school website and we're collecting them on there.
Okay.
But it's
I'll get back to
volunteer,
you on
people
that.
sign up.
Yeah, correct.
I understand.
Okay, thank you.
I'll get back to you on that.
Lots of gray here.
Yeah. Beyond OCPF, Chris asked, the IRS also has restrictions related to nonprofits from using its resources to advocate for a voting position. Doing so puts the organization's nonprofit status at risk, like the PTO. We've seen the Medfield PTO taking that risk in the past. Our rules would not prohibit a private group from spending money, even a nonprofit. It happens frequently. If there are IRS issues, that would really be between the PTO and the IRS. But PTOs, it's my understanding that they frequently get involved in these types of campaigns, as well as other nonprofits getting involved in all sorts of different election issues. Can you ask to raise? Okay. Sorry, Tim. A volunteer group would distribute to their members or the public in newsletters or emails the information on the school committee website. Yes, a volunteer group could be created to do that. I just want to point out there is a Vote Yes committee already, I believe. If there's another group that is like, you know what, we want to start our own Vote Yes group, they can do so. There can be 10 Vote Yes committees. There doesn't just have to be one, but any group that pools their resources to support or oppose a question is a ballot question committee. So if a group gets together and they want to create and distribute newsletters and there's some cost to that, then they need to form their own ballot question committee or work through the current Vote Yes committee. But yes, you know, volunteer groups using their own resources, not public resources, they can distribute information. It's all about disclosure though, you know, disclosing money raised and money spent on the ballot question. And Emily said that in my experiencing, having OCPF take a look at the board before printing is a good practice. It is. And I'm still open to answering questions. I'm in no rush if there are more. Yes, Tracy.
So the first question I had is if you could just review again, using the superintendent and also the principal of the elementary school in question that we want to advocate voting one way or the other, but using them in the sense of explaining the need. I mean, I think that the community wants to hear from the principal of the school about what the deficits are in the building that they have now and why they're looking to build. So I know that you had said that they could be used in some cases, or it would only be used by the vote yes committee. I just wanted to clarify that, because that does seem that, you know, you might want to give a tour, you might want them to speak about it generally, not advocating yes, but speak about the need.
I understand. Yeah, so a superintendent or a principal, for example, like you mentioned tour, yeah, they could set up a time where they say, you know, there's going to be we're going to tour the school, the current school, and we're going to show the deficiencies and that sort of thing. And we're going to do that off hours. If anyone from the public wants to show up for that, they can. The question is how you advertise a public forum like that. So like I said, you know, public forums can be advertised or promoted in some way, but in every case, if you're going to advertise a forum or a tour or something like that, you would want to have the script or the information reviewed by someone at OCPF. Because the general rule is, you know, no public resources. But if we're going to make an exception, we're going to say, let us look at it first. The, you know, when, you know, a superintendent or a principal, they could be asked to attend the school committee meeting every week or every month or whatever it is, to discuss it. And they, you know, there's usually a time where they ask, you know, someone from the school administration to talk about issues. You know, he or she could get up and talk all they want about the ballot question. And, you know, a lot of times that's put on television and or online, the video of it. You know, they could do all that, you know, they could even talk about, and then maybe a school committee member says, but superintendent, do we really need this new school? I mean, the taxes are so high, and the superintendent say, yes, we do. The pipes are bursted. I mean, we need this new school, people, you know, things like that, you know, that's fine. That kind of stuff is okay.
All right.
You know, they can talk to the media, yeah, you know, that sort of thing. We get this question a lot. You know, our town has a public television station, community access television. The superintendent was invited to go on, you know, John Smith's show at noon. You know, can she do that? Yeah, she can go on that because it's part of her scope of responsibility. But if the John Smith show says, we want to get a group of teachers in here at noon who work in that school and they can talk about how bad it is, we'd say, no, you know, teachers, that's not their scope. You know, that's not a scope of their responsibility. If they're going to do that, they need to take a vacation day.
Okay. And then my last question is, and maybe you already answered it, is that we do have our own Facebook page for the project. So is that something that we need to run by you, or I don't know what we're thinking on that, but that's where we are putting, it's not advocating one way or the other, but it's the information that is coming out of the building committee about the timeline, about the potential costs, about the information, but we do have our own dedicated Facebook page called the Dale Street Building Project.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay, all right.
Where I would like say, where I'd be curious is, you know, are any public resources being used to maintain that page? In other words, you know, is someone from the school department during the workday maintaining that page? It doesn't sound like it.
Well, no, but somebody from one of the contractors are, which is, I don't know how that's viewed. It's a subcontractor of the school, which public money somewhat indirectly is going to. So it's Tim Baker from, is it, I'm Tim, I'm sorry, are you Arrow Street or I'm not
left field.
Left field, thanks.
Hey, guys, I gotta go. Thank you very much, Jason. This is really helpful.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Bye, guys.
Ciao.
And I don't, it's a good, on Tracy one to drill in a little, because it's, we are looking at, you know, separation of duties. I don't have all the details on the contracts with, you know, for example, left field, but there is a certain amount of, they're gathering information and then they're distributing that. And so there is a certain element of budget that we would expect that they're sharing that information in a way that's accessible to the community. right? And I think we as a body are trying to say, and I'll speak towards Larry or Tim, hey, that information may or may not be clear, right? But I think that's where there are some dollars that are going to that, and that's part of any project. I think that if you're not sharing that information, we know those projects are going to fail, right?
Yeah.
People are not going to support them.
Earlier, I don't know if you remember, but I said something like, public resources even can't be filtered through third parties. This is exactly the situation I was talking about. And we just answered this question. A school department said, we're not gonna distribute any information to the public, but our contractor, the architects who are actually building the school, they're gonna distribute it. We're paying them for it, but that's being filtered through. And our office said, whoa, put on the brakes. That could be prohibited. That is something that you should be aware of, that, public resources are being used and sort of filtered through a third party. Again, you would want to get a legal analysis from OCPF.
Okay.
Okay, that's interesting, Jason.
Anime, Emily is in the attendees, and so
Oh,
she wanted to
Oh,
see if she
thank
could get
you.
promoted. She
Sorry.
wanted to add to
So
one of the
maybe
comments.
Okay,
you have
beautiful.
to drill in and say, as part of
I'm not saying it would be prohibited. I'm just saying that, I mean, we just had this discussion in our office where the current director, pro tem, he's like, no way, we have to be very careful with that sort of thing. So you'd want to be careful with that. If you're going to ask your third party to sort of run outreach like that, I would definitely run it past OCPF with a scenario. The issue here is about fairness, and so we want to make sure that everyone feels at least like everyone's being treated fairly. And if money's being run through a third party to advocate or to distribute information, then, people who are against this, they may feel like that's not fair. And so I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying, ask our lawyers first before you continue on that path.
All right.
Jason, I'm Emily Grantstaff-Rice. I'm with the designer, and thank you for coming. I've heard your presentation before, which is why I was kind of sneaking in the background there. To clarify, I think the issue at hand with the Facebook is, as long as it's for informational purposes on the project itself, in other words, no advocating. So just like Tim Bonfatti was talking about the sandwich boards, have things run through. And as long as the Facebook or the social media that is for the building project that is run by the OPM or the designer is for informational purposes about the project, not the advocacy for, then we would be in compliance. Does that sound about right?
It's close. Like I said, public resources can be used to post information. So, for example, information can be posted to the school website. So it definitely could be allowed that public resources could be used to post information to a Facebook page, and it probably leans in that direction. But I would certainly, run that question past OCPF's legal department. I can't give a determination here on this call, but that is something that would raise flags for us if we saw that. And the fact that it's objective information doesn't really matter to us, actually. Just
What was the
objective
school? They
information.
fly everything by them.
Yep.
That's
Anything
what
that has
Thank
to
you
do
for
with
clarifying.
anything that has to do with distributing, which Facebook's not really distributing. People are going to Facebook. And so, Emily, I believe that, what you said is probably correct. However, we're living in this world now with new technology. And so this is not something that the law addresses directly. It's not something that we've been dealing with since we founded the agency in '73. In fact, we just came out with our first social media regulations maybe a year and a half ago. So, these are issues that we're still feeling out, and there are lots of gray areas, and we just ask for caution when it comes to the use of public resources and the posting of information on social media and even by third parties. So to be safe is what I'm saying would be to run the situation past OCPF, not like on a call like this, but where our legal team can actually look at it and analyze it and come back with an official answer.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, that was really helpful, but I must say, I'm a little confused with some things, but I think I will, whenever I am confused about a certain issue, I will absolutely reach out to your offices, and that's a wonderful resource for us. So I appreciate your time and this training. I think it was most helpful for our committee and for the viewers.
Yes. And I understand that you guys are the communications subcommittee and it's your job to communicate. And I just went through a whole list of ways that you can't communicate. So I can understand some of the confusion there. Bottom line is private money should pay for communications. That's the general rule. Anything beyond that, send us an email.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. This was very informative, valuable.
Thank you.
Thank you. Be well, Jason.
I'll
Thank
leave now.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, folks. Thank you for joining us. Be well.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thanks.